Good evening, members of the board, superintendent. My name is Tim Anderson. I'm here to talk about school safety this evening. I've emailed you all a few times, and you should have received my proposal, which I've entitled the Virginia Beach Safe School Proposal. There are 70,000 students in Virginia Beach. There's 90 campuses, and there are less than 30 school resource officers guarding those campuses. All of the elementary schools are completely unprotected. Yesterday, my son's elementary school went on lockdown, and the first thing that I felt is what's happening and where are the police? There are no police at any elementary school when there's a lockdown. I go and have lunch with my son, and I realize how easy it would be for me to bring a firearm into that building. There's no security. There's no metal detectors. Our schools are woefully unprotected, and this body has demanded that those schools be gun-free zones. I have watched the delegates and senators in Richmond talk about wanting to have common sense gun reform. And when they say that, I was expecting them to bring in school shootings. I was expecting them to address that. What plan have we seen from them to harden or fortify the schools? Their plans are basically to make law-abiding citizens criminals. That's what their plans are. There's not one thing that they've brought that has talked about making schools safer. The Parkland incident lasted 5 minutes. 17 dead, 17 wounded. The school resource officer ran away. Gun-free zones are dangerous when they're not protected. I'm for gun-free zones in school, so long as we adequately protect them. This school board has not provided the proper resources. I watched the Lee County debacle unfold, if any of you are familiar with that. Lee County tried to address this by making their teachers special conservators of the law, and I watched it very closely. I watched Attorney General Herring come down on them, using the Code of Virginia that says that special conservators of the peace can only carry firearms in the official performance of their duties. But that doesn't apply to law enforcement. My plan would be to arm the crisis response team that every school system has. And the way we would do that would be to send them to a sheriff's academy, which would be a auxiliary sheriff academy that every school crisis team member would have the option to go to. It would not be mandatory, and they would not be paid. This would be a volunteer benefit. This would be a volunteer thing that the teachers or the administrators, whoever's on this crisis team, would elect to attend. The sheriff would put them through an academy, probably over the summer, and would certify them as auxiliary deputy sheriffs. As law enforcement, the code would allow them to have firearms in the building legally, not in the performance of their duty. It's just for law enforcement. An auxiliary deputy is the same thing as a non-auxiliary deputy under the code. It would authorize members of the school to respond to a school shooting on the spot. Not mandatory, I'm not talking about arming teachers, I'm not talking about arming many, just the crisis team. Also, you can hire 300 school safety officers at a very small fraction, retired law enforcement officers. The superintendent said that he would be happy to hear my comments and would defer to law enforcement. I've spoken to Sheriff Stolley about this plan, and he is on board. He is receptive to this idea. I'm asking you to allow this to be explored so that we can see if this can become a reality. Finally, you'll probably get sued by the Attorney General for doing it. I will offer my services at my law firm to represent this school board free of charge if that happens.
And Vincent Smith and Jimmy Frost.
Welcome. Hello, my name is Kathleen Carter. I'm a 46-year tax-paying resident of Virginia Beach, and I'm here today to address the issue of the Facebook post that went viral, made by our superintendent of Virginia Beach City Public Schools. I must add that I am a former teacher in the Virginia Beach City Public School System in the 70s under the direction of then Superintendent Dr. Ed Brickell. I really wanted to voice my dismay today over this particular controversy. It's extremely ironic that had Dr. Spence's wife not posted the New Year's Day post, which specifically told the sitting president to go expletive deleted himself, I might not have known about some of the other controversies. With that foolish action, for which Mrs. Spence did not apologize for over a week, and for which Dr. Spence issued a very weak and skewed justification, Mrs. Spence effectively alerted the public that there may be problems with the superintendent. Dr. Spence, in his statement, said that he was not aware of his wife's post. I am active on Facebook, and I know that whenever a selfie is posted, the common courtesy is to ask the other people portrayed in the selfie if they are comfortable with the picture. Are we to believe that this did not happen? This question is further compounded by the fact that Dr. Spence is active on Twitter, posting no fewer than 22 posts between December 6th and January 9th, including pics of his wife, his dog, his reading material, his date nights, and even pics of his sons, something he chides other people not to do. Are we to believe that someone so active on social media outlets is simply not aware? It just doesn't compute. So, there are other problems that came to light as I became aware of this issue and started doing research. There's some that have taken the position that the wife made the post and the husband cannot be held accountable, and that the wife was simply exercising her First Amendment rights. I am privy to a situation in which I do know that a wife was held accountable for what she posted on social media, and the husband was punished for that particular action. Even if the position were true that the husband is not accountable, there's a much bigger problem here. In an October 13 post, which I have captured on my camera roll through screenshot, before Mrs. Spence deactivated her Facebook account, Mrs. Spence quotes verbatim her husband's political beliefs. And this is a quote: "My husband said this to me today about Trump." Quote, "It's interesting. What he's doing is turning one of the two major parties in this country into an extremist organization dedicated to the elimination of anyone opposed to white privilege. Sad, but a failing strategy. While divisive, it's the last gasp of the 20th century, and it will be overrun by 21st century America." 30 seconds. The wife goes on to affirm that position. "I have to tell you, in all my time and volunteer work, I've never seen anyone in such a position and remunerated with taxpayer dollars to the tune of $250,000 per annum proffer such inflammatory rhetoric when he is in a position of leadership that leads over 88 schools and 70,000 students of all ethnicity and demographics. His obvious bias is beneath the dignity of the appointed position." I can go on with other problems that came to light. Am I finished?
I can take it for the rest of the day.
I'll move forward with Vincent Smith and Jimmy Frost and Michelle Riley.
Good evening. Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Vincent Smith. I'm a city employee. I'm here to speak tonight in support of Tim Anderson's program proposal. I know people who work in this building, and I heard the hours on May 31st, huddled under a desk, behind a locked door, waiting, not knowing. My office was in building 2, right next door. Even though I was not there that day, at the time the tragedy occurred, we've all lived through this together. For a moment, take yourself back to when you were 7 years old. You're in 2nd grade. Superheroes, capes and goblins, baseball cards in your bicycle spokes, Barbie dolls. Your emotions ran deeper than you understood. The world was fun and scary all at the same time. Now overlay your feelings from May 31st into that memory of your 2nd grade self. You were waiting for someone to save you. Now you're in a school. Someone outside your classroom is yelling and shooting a gun. You don't know what's happening. Do you want your hero to be the teacher 50 feet away in the next room who was trained by the sheriff, is qualified to defend you, and has a firearm? Or do you want your hero to be on the other end of a phone call 12 minutes away? The graphic I have here, and I've given to your clerk to share with you later, It comes from the Giffords Law Center. As you'll see, it's already confirmed that 14 states have teachers and staff members carrying guns in school. Another 20 more allow it and likely already have teachers and staff members carrying firearms in school. All of this with no reported instances of accidents or abuse. Let's talk about Florida. Exactly 23 months ago today, a 19-year-old former student entered Stoneman Douglas High School. He shot 34 people in 6 minutes. And then he just simply walked out and walked away. Half of them died. It was a school just like one of yours. 6 minutes. According to the National Sheriff's Association, the average response time for police to a school shooting, specifically to a school shooting, is 12 and a half minutes. Think about what would have happened if he hadn't just walked away. Last year, in direct response to the Stoneman Douglas shooting, the state of Florida, on the Investigative Commission's recommendation, enacted a school marshal program very similar to what Mr. Anderson proposes here tonight. I'll ask you now, will you choose to take progressive, protective action for the safety of both your students and everyone in your schools and in your employ, or will you take no action until your own tragedy, when you're again huddled under a desk, behind a locked door, waiting and not knowing? Thank you.